very useful, especially the inner stress, because that's something that we inflict on ourselves, which is very interesting. What we talked about a bit before pressing the record button was also related to this, which is this idea that acute stress, like the stress that happens here now, it has a very good evolutionary explanation why it's there. Like when the predator starts chasing you. So it's good to be stressed in some situations. The problem is the chronic stress. So something that keeps happening on and on. And it's interesting that sometimes I can't even say, maybe you know how often, I don't know if anyone did any statistics around it, but how often do we create the stress for ourselves by producing it, keep thinking about something, dwelling on some situation that happened. Sometimes it is just stressful period of life we go through, but sometimes it's the stress that we create for ourselves. And good follow-up question is, how do we manage that?
Oh, that's done so many ways. So most of all, if we just take it as a generic thing, or kind of you increase the cortisol in your body. There's so many other hormones that is increased, but mostly we talk about the hormone cortisol, and then that will make you be ready, right? Also adrenaline, be ready for fight, be ready for
Alert.
fun,
Yeah.
right? And that's, as you say, really good for a short period of time. If you just keep on, for instance, the inner stresses, you keep on having a high level, it is actually breaking down and breaking down your body internally. You get all kinds of situations. I cannot remember all the symptoms you get, but if you look at, there's a made scales of it. There's some positive level of stress where you actually get woken up and aware, and you're ready to do something. It's like really good when the CEO comes in and asks you to do a presentation, that you kind of put all your attention towards that, right? You forget everything else. If somebody calls on your phone, you don't even hear it and stuff like that. So that's really good. But where it's not that good is if you're constantly in that state, you can't, like, your body's wear down, and then you get into a state where you get sick of it. You really get really sick of it, and I mean, in many different ways. And you can look that up in the different symptoms.
Yeah.
And then you can get in a state where you get so sick, so you cannot even get out of bed. You cannot do anything. You are completely like a vegetable that is very slapping. you know, yeah. And in that state, I mean, they are great going that way. You before that state, you probably can do a lot of things. Or you're not probably, you can do a lot of things, and you need
Yeah.
to do that. Of course, remove the stressor, get away from the stressor, stop it. That is very interesting, right? Can you do that? So at work, I had a colleague who were very stressed, and we tried to remove and divide and the work that she needed to do, and that helped some. But
Yeah.
what we didn't know, and what we couldn't handle, was that actually in her, and over time, we found out that in her private life there was something that was a stress for her, and it was not like she was inflicting it on herself. It was actually one of her. It was her spouse that was sick, getting sick with. Yeah, can't remember whatever, some kind of deadly disease, right? But she was not able to share that. She didn't want to share that, so we didn't know. So we just thought it was the work part, the
Yeah.
demand resources are, right? But it was actually her inner stress saying, "What will happen now if my husband I mean, I'm just imagining. She hasn't told this, but what will happen now if my husband dies? What will happen with our kids and stuff like that? And thinking all that stress that comes from inside. Somebody says often that stress is inflicted mostly because of the private stuff. Well, we are actually a whole human being. We cannot divide that when we go to work and say, okay, now I'm only at work and I forget everything about all my problems. I mean, that's
Yeah,
not possible. We are one person, a whole person coming at work. So we actually need to embrace the other part also of the all the colleagues we have, right?
yeah.
So yeah.
There's a sort of science fiction series on Apple TV, Severance. It's science fiction because it's happening in the world where you can do that split. It,
Oh,
I I can't recommend the series, but maybe the first episode is even the way it's handled, it's interesting. It's like you have two two parts of your life. You are a private person, and when you go to the elevator in your at work, then you switch to being a person at work, and then you leave, and it happens the other way around. It's science fiction dystopian future where corporations inject something into your brain to make that happen, and you agree with that voluntarily, so you don't
yeah.
have stress at work. uh, anyway, first episode is good.
Ah,
I think something interesting also that you mentioned is when managing stress, there's a lot of stuff that you can do yourself. We talked previously about breathing techniques and counting and all of that. There's also very important aspect of social support in a sense of talking to people, processing things by talking about them. It's so important to actually have those people that you can talk to, uh, and it's very helpful in yeah, in my experience. But I read that in the Robert Sapolsky book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, which is all about stress. Yeah, super
yeah.
interesting, super very much into details.
So you're actually tapping in some knowledge. When you say that, I remember something. So the social support is very important. We often call that next of kin support groups, right? That means that the people who are in the
Yeah,
same situation that have tried the same thing actually understand how it feels, and actually when you say something, they don't say, "Well, couldn't you just blah blah blah?" But
yeah,
they
yeah. I have a good
empathic.
advice for you.
Yeah, exactly. You're empathic, and I think that that goes for many, 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 many diseases, many, many, many situations where you're next of kin to things, right? It's like a support group. I think that's really
Yeah,
good. Group therapy, it's also called many times. Um, Another thing is that when you look at stress, and we're just right now attacking the first old definition where we have the resources. So as a person, you have as a kind of a fixed set of resources here and now. Of course, over time they can go up and go down, but right now I have the pocket full of money with this, right? And then I also have the requirements coming outside. They're often also fixed at the time being, right. But what is not fixed is the situation around it, right?
mm,
It's all the systemic things around it that is actually putting me in this, the constraints or the, yeah, call constraints, you call it that, conditions also, right? And if you go to a workplace, for instance, and you often see there's many people who are being very stressed, you might want to, I'm not saying it's like that, but you might want to look at the constraints or the conditions you are making for people there. So it's
yeah.
not even, if you want to look at the system of it, you want to treat the systematic, the system itself.
Systemic issue. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly, and not the
yeah,
each of the cogwheels in here. So it's a very simple thinking. Also, if you are experiencing the number 5 rule, which was the inner stress, you could actually there's some cognitive therapy thinking of how you can do that. There's more than one way of doing it, but as you just alluded to, was to have a focus on not thinking of the things from the past, and as I also stop the overthinking part
Yeah.
in your brain, or using your cognitive brain. And one way of doing that is to start counting your breaths. Just breathe normally, but just start counting, right? You count to 7 up and you can count down again. I think that was the game I heard. What you count up to 7, you just breathe normally, and you don't
Yeah.
talk. Just focus on your breathing, count up to 7, and then count down to 1. And once you sort of like catch yourself on start to grumble, think and stuff like that, you just say thinking, and you start over, and that makes you
Yeah.
even better. You're sort of like training your neurons to not start this process, but to focus on something in your body, your here and now, kind of mindfulness, but you're just doing it. And I talk about just do that 2 minutes a day, and then you start getting off, and you are in a situation where you want an alternative. You can count the steps you do while you walk. You can just count the steps: 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
4. I'll do it when I walk my dog, for instance, and that helps. And it's really funny to, if I'm really busy up here, it goes like 1, 2, 3, 4, thinking. It comes right there. But just having that focus on, oh, I'm thinking now, and say that's okay. But now I count again, right? That stops the thinking.
Yeah.
And that, as I read, it releases, I can't remember the substance that accumulates here in the pre frontal cortex, but it releases this substance, and that makes your
So
neuron work better.
I remember this part. It's there's a sympathetic nervous system
Yes.
and parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic one is more about being active. It's usually the fight or flight response. And I might go off tangent with this one because I read amazing thing about it. Uh, and the parasympathetic one is the rest and digest. So all about slowing down.
Yeah.
The stress activates the sympathetic nervous system, and the controlled breathing and counting that stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, so it pulls you down, and that's lowering your heart rate, that's you know improving your blood pressure, and overall it's like
Yeah.
it's good for you.
Exactly.
It's fantastic that some meditation techniques from some cultures, they are like they are so aligned with what we know nowadays, uh, on the more technical or biological level.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that the meditation techniques or the mindfulness is techniques that people have used, and they have found it useful and found value in it, but they didn't know why, right? And a lot of, at least in the Western part, we're just saying, yeah, that's Eastern rubbish or Eastern magic, right? But now we are looking into it in a more scientific way, and seeing that many of these rubbish techniques from the East actually has valid on the Earth. There's a scientific reason for things.
Yeah.
We had a very interesting book, which I cannot find anymore, but it was the uh, being handling stress and depression and something else like traumas without taking medicine. And that was one of the exercises, actually, to learn how to breathe with your heart. It was really nice, really, really nice, very interesting. So instead of following your breath like this, where you breathe with your lungs and you push out, you start imagining that it goes through your heart, and it actually changed the way you start feeling within yourself. It is really amazing thing. Also,
Mm.
the acupuncture and mindfulness and was part of this book as a thing. And also, there's another one which is really cool. It's called EMDI, probably very famous at the moment. It's a I can't remember the abbreviation, except it's the eye something eye rapid movement thing, right? So
Yeah.
you are trying doing like this, and you go and you have to follow my fingers. And I would like to do that one day with you. That would be funny online. I haven't tried it online, but we are using it in therapy, and it actually has a really good both effect if you have a trauma, and also has a good understanding of the knowledge behind it, why it works. So it is when you have a REM sleep, your eye
Yeah.
movement goes like this, right? And you can see it goes. And what actually happens is that you're following the representative system in your body, which is your eyes, for instance, in this case. So you're moving your eyes, but by moving in this way, you can try it. It's really difficult to make a sense of what happens. That makes your brain get a bit confused, and it takes this confused thing and put on top of the things that it's thinking about right now, bonk, as a new memory. It's called memory reconciliation. Sorry,
Yeah.
reconciliation, and it is actually somehow disturbing your brain's way of remembering things, and then makes it like a a very abstract picture. And so whenever you want to find that memory again, you get some abstract picture, and then you just say, no, that's not, I can't remember it. Right? So it's a way to forget both bad things and good things and stuff like that. So if you have a trauma, you can actually use this EMDR to inflict a sort of this abstract picture in your brain, right? Because you don't only remember things by your eyes, and not only one place. You have movement, you have colors, you have your hearing, what you saw, you have your feelings, you have what you smelled, what you tasted, right? And also the time going by. You remember that different places in your brain. You need to connect that again and make a whole piece of it. And if something is wrong in that picture, you sort of like, what the fuck? What? Sorry, what happens here? Right. So that's also something that is really good. It's not for stress, because stress is not what something you have, but it's from traumas, and how you remember things if you have something you don't want to remember. So we should try that one day. See what that
Let's do
happens.
that. Let's do that. I need to think of a trauma, but I bet I have many.